Chapter 3 of To Let. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Simon Evers. The Forsyte Saga 3. To Let by John Galsworthy. Chapter 3. At Robin Hill. Jolyon Forsyte had spent his boy's 19th birthday at Robin Hill, quietly going into his affairs. He did everything quietly now, because his heart was in a poor way, and, like all his family, he disliked the idea of dying. He had never realized how much, till one day 2 years ago he had gone to his doctor about certain symptoms, and been told, "At any moment, on any overstrain." He had taken it with a smile, the natural Forsyte reaction against an unpleasant truth. But, with an increase of symptoms in the train on the way home, he had realized to the full the sentence hanging over him. To leave Irene, his boy, his home, his work, though he did little enough work now, to leave them for unknown darkness, for the unimaginable state, for such nothingness that he would not even be conscious of wind stirring leaves above his grave, nor of the scent of earth and grass; of such nothingness that, however hard he might try to conceive it, he never could, and must still hover on the hope that he might see again those he loved. To realize this was to endure very poignant spiritual anguish. Before he reached home that day he had determined to keep it from Irene. He would have to be more careful than man had ever been, for the least thing would give it away, and make her as wretched as himself, almost. His doctor had passed him sound in other respects, and 70 was nothing of an age. He would last a long time yet, if he could. Such a conclusion, followed out for nearly 2 years, develops to the full the subtler side of character. Naturally not abrupt, except when nervously excited, Jolyon had become control incarnate. The sad patience of old people who cannot exert themselves was masked by a smile which his lips preserved even in private. He devised continually all manner of cover to conceal his enforced lack of exertion. Mocking himself for so doing, he counterfeited conversion to the simple life, gave up wine and cigars, drank a special kind of coffee with no coffee in it. In short, he made himself as safe as a Forsyte in his condition could, under the rose of his mild irony. Secure from discovery, since his wife and son had gone up to town, he had spent the fine May day quietly arranging his papers, that he might die tomorrow without inconveniencing anyone, giving in fact a final polish to his terrestrial state. Having docketed and enclosed it in his father's old Chinese cabinet, he put the key into an envelope, wrote the words outside, "Key of the Chinese cabinet, wherein will be found the exact state of me, J. F., and put it in his breast pocket, where it would be always about him in case of accident. Then, ringing for tea, he went out to have it under the old oak tree. All are under sentence of death. Jolyon, whose sentence was but a little more precise and pressing, had become so used to it that he thought habitually, like other people, of other things. He thought of his son now. John was 19 that day, and John had come of late to a decision. Educated neither at Eton, like his father, nor at Harrow, like his dead half-brother, but at one of those establishments which, designed to avoid the evil and contain the good of the public school system, may or may not have contained the evil and avoid the good. John had left in April, perfectly ignorant of what he wanted to become. The war, which had promised to go on for ever, had ended just as he was about to join the army, 6 months before his time. It had taken him ever since to get used to the idea that he could now choose for himself. He had held with his father several discussions, from which, under a cheery show of being ready for anything, except, of course, the church, army, law, stage, stock exchange, medicine, business, and engineering, Jolyon had gathered rather clearly that John wanted to go in for nothing. He himself had felt exactly like that at the same age. With him, that pleasant vacuity had soon been ended by an early marriage, and its unhappy consequences. Forced to become an underwriter at Lloyd's, he had regained prosperity before his artistic talent had outcropped. But having, as the simple say, learned his boy to draw pigs and other animals, he knew that John would never be a painter, and inclined to the conclusion that his aversion from everything else meant that he was going to be a writer. Holding, however, the view that experience was necessary even for that profession, there seemed to Jolyon nothing in the meantime for John but university, travel, and perhaps the eating of dinners for the bar. After that one would see, or more probably one would not. In face of these proffered allurements, however, John had remained undecided. Such discussions with his son had confirmed in Jolyon a doubt whether the world had really changed. People said that it was a new age. With the profundity of one not too long for any age, Jolyon perceived that under slightly different surfaces the era was precisely what it had been. Mankind was still divided into two species, the few who had speculation in their souls, and the many who had none, with a belt of hybrids like himself in the middle. John appeared to have speculation. It seemed to his father a bad lookout. With something deeper, therefore, than his usual smile, he had heard the boy say, a fortnight ago, "I should like to try farming, Dad, if it won't cost you too much. It seems to be about the only sort of life that doesn't hurt anybody. Except art, and of course that's out of the question for me." Jolyon subdued his smile and answered, "All right, you shall skip back to where we were under the first Jolyon in 1760. It'll prove the cycle theory, and incidentally, no doubt, you may grow a better turnip than he did." A little dashed, John had answered, "But don't you think it's a good scheme, Dad?" "'Twill serve, my dear, and if you should really take to it, you'll do more good than most men, which is little enough." To himself, however, he had said, "But he won't take to it. I give him 4 years. Still, it's healthy and harmless." After turning the matter over and consulting with Irene, he wrote to his daughter, Mrs. Val Dartie, asking if they knew of a farmer near them on the downs who would take John as an apprentice. Holly's answer had been enthusiastic. There was an excellent man quite close. She and Val would love John to live with them. The boy was due to go tomorrow. Sipping weak tea with lemon in it, Jolyon gazed through the leaves of the old oak tree at that view which had appeared to him desirable for 32 years. The tree beneath which he sat seemed not a day older. So young, the little leaves of brownish gold; so old, the whity grey-green of its thick, rough trunk. A tree of memories, which would live on hundreds of years yet, unless some barbarian cut it down. Would see old England out at the pace things were going. He remembered a night 3 years before when, looking from his window, with his arm close round Irene, he had watched a German aeroplane hovering, it seemed, right over the old tree. Next day they had found a bomb-hole in a field on Gage's farm. That was before he knew that he was under sentence of death. He could almost have wished the bomb had finished him. It would have saved a lot of hanging about, many hours of cold fear in the pit of his stomach. He had counted on living to the normal Forsyte age of 85 or more, when Irene would be 70. As it was, she would miss him. Still, there was John, more important in her life than himself, John who adored his mother. Under that tree where old Jolyon, waiting for Irene to come to him across the lawn, had breathed his last, Jolyon wondered whimsically whether, having put everything in such perfect order, he had not better close his